July 13th, 1978. Deep inside the Soviet Union's Institute for High Energy Physics, something impossible was about to happen. Anatoli Bugorski was a brilliant 36-year-old researcher working on the U-70 Synchrotron, the largest particle accelerator in Russia at the time. It was a massive circular ring, pulsing with energy that most of us can't even comprehend. That morning, a piece of equipment failed. Anatoly did what any dedicated scientist would do. He leaned in to check it. But there was a catastrophic glitch in the safety system. The warning lights that should have been screaming danger were dark. As Anatoly leaned his head into the path of the beam, a pulse of protons, traveling at 99% the speed of light, shot through his skull. He didn't feel a thing. No pain, no heat, just a flash. He later described it as a light brighter than 1,000 suns. He knew exactly what had just happened. He knew the math. The beam had entered through the back of his head and exited near his nose. In that fraction of a second, his brain had been hit with a dose of radiation so high it shouldn't just have killed him, it should have vaporized the tissue in its path. To give you an idea of the scale, 500 rads of radiation is usually enough to kill a human being within days. The beam that passed through Anatoly's brain was measured at 200,000 rads. He didn't tell anyone. He finished his shift, went home, and waited to die. By the next morning, the left side of his face had swollen so much he was unrecognizable. The skin began to blister and peel away, tracing the exact path the beam had taken through his flesh. When he was finally rushed to a specialized clinic in Moscow, the doctors didn't even try to treat him. They weren't looking for a cure. They were looking to study the final moments of a man who was, for all intents and purposes, already a ghost. But as the days turned into weeks, something started to happen that defied every medical textbook in the Soviet Union. Anatoly Bugorski wasn't dying. He was waking up.
The doctors in Moscow were waiting for the inevitable. They expected Anatoly's brain to liquefy, his nervous system to shut down, and his organs to fail within hours. But as the weeks passed, the impossible became reality. Anatoly Bugorski stayed alive. The proton beam had acted like a cosmic needle, cauterizing a path through his brain so narrow and so fast that it didn't cause the shatter effect typical of radiation poisoning. It was the most precise and most accidental brain surgery in history. But survival came with a bizarre price. As the years went by, something eerie happened to Anatoly's face. Because the beam had destroyed the nerves on the left side of his head, that side of his face became completely paralyzed. But here's the kicker. Because those nerves were dead, that side of his face stopped aging. Decades later, Anatoly looks like two different people stitched together. The right side of his face is wrinkled and aged naturally, while the left side remains smooth, frozen in 1978. It is a living mask of the day he was sniped by a particle. It wasn't all just a frozen face, though. He lost hearing in his left ear and began to experience complex internal sounds, a constant rhythmic ringing. He also developed a rare form of epilepsy. Yet, despite being hit with 400 times the lethal dose of radiation, his intellect remained perfectly intact. He actually went back to work, finished his PhD, and continued his research in the very same lab where the accident happened. Because this happened in the Soviet Union, the story was classified as top secret for over a decade. It wasn't until the 1990s, after the fall of the USSR, that the world learned about the man who looked into the light of 1,000 suns and walked away. Today, Anatoly is in his 80s. He's a living anomaly, a man who proved that the human body is far more resilient than we ever imagined, and a reminder that in the world of high-energy physics, one tiny mistake can freeze you in time forever.